It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And it is Judd's Hockey Show live from XL Energy Center, where AJ and I are coming to you after a 1-0 Wild win. Plenty to talk about. Not so much from the game because, quite frankly, the game was a snooze fest, but more so from the pre-game press conference Bill Guerin, the Wild GM, gave. Of course, Friday is the trade deadline. A lot to get to. Gus Nyquist did play in his first game back with the Wild today since being reacquired on Saturday from Nashville. So plenty to talk about. But before we do that, I want to tell you about a very fine establishment located just steps away from where we are right now, down West 7th. That is Parlor Bar. Absolutely outstanding, fantastic. I've told you before, the burgers are great. The chicken sandwich, fantastic. Eggs served all day, boozy milkshakes, a great pregame stop. In fact, there is a menu about an hour and a half before the puck is dropped here at the X. There is a menu especially for game day. Don't forget, if you're coming to the Boys State High School Hockey Tournament starting on Wednesday, a Parlor just steps away, not too far from the X. So check it out. You will be glad that you did take the advice of Sports Dad, because I have been there, and it is fantastic. All right, AJ, let's briefly clear out what we thought of the game and then get to the more intriguing stuff. The Wild's 3-game losing streak comes to an end. A tipped-in goal, or perhaps not, Marcus Johansson shot. As of right now, Freddie Gaudreau credited with the tip-in, or the puck tipped off him, and the Wild wins the game, now improving, and I say that in air quotes and very sarcastically, improving to 14-13-1 at home. So before we talk about what Bill Guerin had to say in the trade deadline, what did you think of this game?
This was one of the most boring games of hockey I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, just to be frankly honest, I feel bad for the people that paid their hard-earned money to bring their families out for Next Gen Day, or whatever it was called here at the XL Energy Center. I'm sure people watching at home felt like it was a Saturday afternoon of PGA golf, where, you know, you wait, you tune in, and then you nap a little bit, you wake up refreshed, and it's like, oh, perfect, just in time for the final few minutes. Like this, the first period was very low action. The second period was very low action. The third period, very low action. It was a hockey game, but not a very entertaining one at that. But the Wild needed a way to win and snap that 3-game losing streak, and they do against a team that is reeling. They took advantage of a poor performing Boston Bruins squad, and it not only is it a win to snap that, but it's a win on home ice, which we haven't been able to say more than enough at this building here this year. So points are points, and I'm sure that's what they're saying in the locker room. That I'm sure should be the narrative around this one. But what's important is now for a month of March, where I think they have like 18 events here at the X. Most of them are Minnesota Wild hockey games, paired with like the high school hockey tournament and everything going on. This is where something they need to build off of it. You're at home basically all of March. You should not be faltering in and out of games. This needs to be a nice stepping stone to success in the coming months.
11 to 15,
I should say.
11 to 15 this month, starting off with today at home. The Wild now goes on a road trip. It's going to be brief. They go and play Seattle. I think that's on Tuesday. They play the Canucks on Friday. And then they come home and they play in order Pittsburgh, the Avalanche, the Rangers, the Blues, the Kings, the Kraken, the Sabres. They go on the road on the 24th of March for a game at Dallas. And then they come back and play Vegas, Washington, and the Devils to close out the month. So, yeah, that is there's no question that the Wild, one, needs to use this, as boring as this game was, as a springboard. And then the other thing, too, Age, is they need to use it as a springboard, but we also need to figure out, like, how is this team going to play to win games? Boston largely checked out. I would have liked to see the Wild win by more, because I sense that the Bruins, and in their defense a little bit, they're without Brad Marchand, who got hurt against Pittsburgh yesterday. McAvoy is out. So they're missing some key guys. But I don't sense a lot of interest from the Boston side, which is why I would have liked to see more than a goal from the home team. But, and let's transition right now. Kaprizov, out. Bill Guerin today. No idea when he's back. Can't tell you. You guys keep asking me. I can't tell you that. Eriksson is out. No idea. Can't tell you. Don't even know when he's going to skate. At some point in time, if you're to take what Bill Guerin said today, before the game, at face value, they are hopeful that Kirill and Eriksson Ek, as of today, as of Sunday, will return before the end of the regular season. And now, today, find out, Brodin is out again week to week, which is where Eriksson Ek started. So that could be, long story short, though, if this team is going to be without 3 key players, like, is today what they're going to have to replicate more and more? Because, there is, the addition of Gus Nyquist is nice, but the amount of firepower here now is basically down to 0. So my question becomes, how is the Wild going to have to play to win consistently, especially if they face a team that is interested in playing the game? Utah was, Colorado was, Boston was not.
They're going to have to rely on their top 2 lines, and these top 2 lines are not like riddled with star power, but they're going to have to rely on a few guys to step up and act like stars. And this goes back to what we've talked about at the start of the game. You had the top line of Nyquist, Rossi, Boldy. Rossi and Boldy, they have the TVs up here in the press box, but they showed on the TNT broadcast what those guys have both done with Kirill Kaprizov not in the lineup. For like 24 games without Kaprizov, both guys have 20 or 20 some odd points in his absence. So they have stepped up in a certain way. This Gustav Nyquist, you could tell today he did flash a few times. He had one entry where I believe he drew a penalty, kind of weaved his way into the zone, had a good chance. But there was also a lot of times where you could tell they weren't on the same page. Clearly different schemes. First game back with the team. Just because he's played here before does not necessarily mean that all of a sudden you're going to just pick up right where you left off. And what they saw when he was here last time around is going to come forward. They're going to have some time here, I would assume, with a few skates to get him reacclimated with how they want to exit the zone, how they want to enter the zone. Certain things of just like there was a pass thrown across the center of the ice and nobody else in a green sweater was there. He's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're going to exit the zone now. Definitely some miscommunication. In that second line, Johansson, Gaudreau, Zuccarello. Right now, I'm actually kind of that line is somewhat appealing to me. We've seen an effortful, like a hard-working Marcus Johansson the past few games out. Freddie Gaudreau, he genuinely has, I think, risen to the occasion. I don't think he's been a star by any means, but he's played above the level that I think we have normally seen him at. Matt Zuccarello, and we were having a brief discussion about this, where as much as I would love to have him be the guy that drives that line, I don't know just at this stage of his career if he maybe has that in his bag. Like, he's going to have to complement the other 2 guys, but not kind of carry that line on his own. So it's those 2 lines that you're going to have to deal with, and you're going to have success. If those 2 lines get shut down, it's going to be a really bad night. And the thing is about that too is I don't know you're necessarily going to have 4, 5, 6 goal nights. You're probably going to have to settle with what we have here today, a 1-0 win, good goaltending and some good penalty kills, which was a delight. That was a delight today. Perfect on the penalty kill. A 2-1 game is going to be probably biting your nails in the third period. So it's going to be, I think, a lot of just try to get 1, try to get 2, and then you're really battening down the hatches so that you don't let the other team find the back of the net.
Which is great, and unless you play a team that actually is engaged and cares a lot. Like my guess is it's like March 12th or so. The Rangers are here, right? The Rangers have given up largely. They don't care. You can beat them 2-1. But if you get, the teams that the Wild has not been good against, the Avs and the upper echelon, the Dallas Stars, I don't think you can do that, which leads us to the Friday, if I'm not mistaken, 2 p.m. Central, trade deadline. Now, the Wild did make a preemptive move on Saturday. Gus Nyquist traded for a 2026 second-round pick. But from what Bill Guerin said today, yes, Marcus Johansson and Gaudreau's been playing great too. But yeah, JoJo got a talking to or decided, I'm going to try hard, and it's driving me absolutely crazy when Johansson does that. But so let's go to what Guerin said, though, because now keeping this in mind, Nyquist, his salary and part of the thing of why it was a second-round pick was Nashville's going to pay a good portion of Nyquist's remaining salary, making it easier on the Wild to incorporate him into their cap. And part of what's happened here is the Wild is making sure that they can activate in the regular season Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek, fit them back in the cap with Gustav Nyquist still here. And Guerin confirmed, yes, that's why. Guerin also said that they don't know, as I talked about a little bit before, they don't know when Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek are coming back. They just hope that they are cleared to come back before the playoffs start. If they were held out until the playoffs start, the salary cap goes away at that point. So you could take on more guys now and play everybody in the playoffs. The Wild prefers their two players, and Kaprizov and Ek, to come back. But Guerin also basically said, we don't really know, which means that they could pivot. Kaprizov already on LTIR. Eriksson Ek is on IR, but could be transferred because there's not a certain number of guys that can be put on long-term IR. So long story short, I don't know that Bill Guerin, AJ, is not going to make a substantial trade by Friday. Like right now, he's like, yeah, it's hard to, we're up against it again, and it's going to be tough. But I have a feeling, one, he doesn't like to outright lie. So he might know what he's going to do, but he's going to tell you, I don't know exactly when guys are back, which is probably partially true. So long story short, I'm not convinced we're not going to see another trade made before 2 p.m. Central Time on Friday. That won't bring a significant name here because like what we saw today, I don't care if you add Gustav or not, what we saw today is not a sustainable way to make the playoffs, in my opinion. So like you've got to pick your path here. I think we're both on record as saying we probably wouldn't make a big move to trade an Ogren or more draft picks or something like that. And as of right now, it looks like they won't. I'm not convinced that's the case, though.
And also just for transparency for the people watching and listening, those comments too, one when brought up about, hey, just so I don't know if you were aware of this or not, Bill, but with the 50% retention, it comes down to, basically even money to where you're going to be able to fit these guys back in. And he made a very aggressive point, I think, in the tone of being like, yeah, trust me, we are aware. And after some poking and prodding from other people in the room, it sounds like they're hopeful that it is a regular season return for both Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek. So
correct.
And then banking off that too with, because I see some people asking, like, is anybody playing tense, or like, does the roster moves potentially signify what could happen in the week coming up? He did touch on the unfortunate, and it seems like his tone of it is a very unfortunate circumstance where sending Marat Husnudinov down, it wasn't a phone call he wanted to make. It's one of those, for cap and money reasons, for roster spot reasons, like they had to send him down, and that's a guy that's been here since the get-go. So I would bank that Marat Husnudinov is not planning to be moved anywhere unless for some reason in this coming week he and his agent just pretty much walk up and say, hey, we really take that as a disrespect, blah, blah, blah. But it sounded like there was an understanding there. What I do respect about Bill Guerin is that he seems like a very straight shooter. Like he doesn't seem like some front office, like sports figures where they'll get in front of the podium and they're just kind of shooting the breeze and they're going to say what exactly you might want to hear. And then, later on they leave things very open-ended so that you can't necessarily say, hey, well, you said this, now this is totally contradicting that. Today, I mean, when asked about injuries, I get the sense that, yes, he's been told that these guys probably are going to return regular season, but I don't think that he has a very firm grasp and has been told here's a cement window of what we're going to aim to have these guys back. I think that maybe has been frustrating for him and probably the team. When asked, he was at one point asked about, is there anything totally off limits? Is there anything that you would not part with here this week? He took a few seconds to gather his thoughts, and you could, maybe no. He said, no, really nothing is off limits, because at the end of the day, if somebody wants to offer you 17 first round picks and their franchise player for Kirill Kaprizov, I'm guessing he's probably going to pull the trigger. He's a very straight shooter. So I do respect that, but the sense that I'm getting, and I think you also have, which is with the whole week, and this is what I was scared about from our talk yesterday, which is with this week coming up, you already have Kirill Kaprizov on LTIR. You're trying to win. You're not in this business if you don't want to win. And granted, you don't for a team that's in a playoff position now that has had the start, even though you're battling injuries, it's hard to just back off and like push away and say, you know what, we just have to like grin and bear it. I think if they get some sort of news, I would expect some move to be made, but he made it sound like, from what I gather, is that if he is told throughout the week, hey, we're still expecting regular season return, they have it set up now with this current roster where no other major moves. And he said it's going to be like very pennies coming in, pennies going out, reassurance maybe on the bottom pairing, the bottom line of the forwards. Like there's not going to be any other major moves. So it's going to be behind the scenes conversations that I think really dictate the moves or lack thereof of the Wild here before March 7th.
Yeah, and the complete unknown, in my opinion, is Kaprizov, because he was out after Christmas, and then it's like he's going to be out for a few weeks. He's going to come back, which eventually he did come back. Played 3 games, then he has surgery, and now it's a situation of, hey, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and then they come back and say, no, again, it's not. It's going to be so. I just feel like there is, with what, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with a lot of time, I feel like there could be a decision made about he's not coming back till the playoffs. And at this point in time, does Kirill come? It depends on what you think this team is capable of. So, like, if you bring Kirill back for the last 2 games and play him, is he now just all rearing to go? I mean, I have no idea. He did that, or they tried that for the Dallas series a couple of years ago, and I think he scored a goal in Game 1 and didn't get a point again. So, like, there's a lot of questions here, and what I interpreted Bill Guerin as saying is we are leaving the door open. As I'm talking to you right now, I plan on no more substantial moves, but then in the next breath asked if he was then done, like, making phone calls. He's like, no, I'm not going to kick my feet up, I believe was his exact quote. I'm going to continue to work this. So there's just, in my opinion, there is a lot of room here for the Wild to make a move, and I'm not encouraging it. I'm with you. I don't think that, if you can sign Brock Besser, who's going to be a free agent from the Canucks on July 1, I sure as heck wouldn't want to give up a bunch of assets to get him now for a playoff run that I don't think is probably going to happen. Like, I think they're going to make the playoffs. But then there's also the concern of, if you still don't know by Friday when Ek and, more importantly, Kaprizov are back and you want to make the playoffs, like, you've got to be concerned. Because, I mean, this game today did nothing to ease your fears. Like, this game, you didn't say, okay, these boys are back. They lost 3 consecutive games, and now they're back. You said, ugh, that was a really ugly game against a team that is largely checked out in the Bruins. So there's just a lot of interesting things here on Brodin, okay? And Guerin was asked about this and downplayed it, and I don't blame him. It's one of those, what else is he going to say? But, I mean, this is getting ridiculous. And I don't blame him per se, but Brodin and Bill talked about blocking shots. That stay in this league now, you have to block shots if you're a defenseman. But the trade-off is this. He has now blocked what? He blocked a shot here against the Blues a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, broke his foot. He blocked a shot with the inside of his knee against the Avs. Bill Guerin refused to say that that's why he's out. And I did think that Brodin looked really, that he struggled a lot against Utah on Thursday too, but there's no question he's still hurt. Like, if that made it worse in Colorado, that's entirely possible. But this one to me is a real problem, because Brodin is quietly one of the most important players that the Wild has when he's playing well. But because of how things have gone, I mean, he is going to end up missing extensive time. And again, he is week to week, which means, much like with Kaprizov, much like with Eriksson Ek, we have no idea when he's going to be back.
Yeah, and that's a guy where, I mean, you saw what he did at the Four Nations face-off. You've seen what he's able to do on the back end for this team. He is just so sound defensively. And what you have pointed out numerous times over the past handful of games is, like, yes, he did look off. Brock Faber has also sort of looked off. And when you're missing those two guys, like two guys who, even if they make a mistake, they're able to close ground quick. They're able to drive guys wide for low percentage areas. when you have both those guys, either one not in the lineup or off their game or a combination of those two, you're going to have chances where the other team can just walk to the front and maybe you can get away with it. Today, it was a fantastic showing, I think, by Philip Gustafsson, who played great. But the Boston Bruins are not the Colorado Avalanche, even Utah. Like those teams, like we saw the past couple of nights, are able to enter the zone fairly easy and then drive the net hard, and there's almost zero resistance a lot of those times. So it is concerning. I know they recalled David Jiricek, and he spoke highly of Jiricek actually before the game today, saying like in the stint that they saw with him before being sent down to Iowa, he is a guy that can bring a lot. I mean, he does have the size, and we know about the offensive talent. I think they're still probably working behind the scenes in practices about the defensive aspect of the game. But is that a guy that you can take and say, hey, now play the Jonas Brodin role? No, you're going to have other people probably step up. And we didn't really get an answer about Zach Bogosian, who missed the last game. It seemed like a very game time-esque decision that he was scratched for a lower body injury. He was back in today, and we didn't really get an answer of like what that was, just something lower body. So if the numbers still dwindle and you have guys kind of in and out battling injuries, missing your two, at least one of the mainstay defensive guys in Jonas Brodin, I mean, it's a massive, massive toll that you're going to have other guys wearing that bear every single night.
And what's intriguing to me about this entire thing too is, so Bill Guerin acknowledged, rightfully so, he was very upset with the losses in Utah and then in Colorado, which, okay, makes perfect sense. But then in the same breath, he talked about how he feels this team does deserve something because they've shown him, throughout the course. And it's true. I mean, this team had a great start. They're a pesky team. I certainly don't dislike this team, and I have certainly disliked Wild teams in the past. But that being said, I don't know that means that you automatically reward them with more players, because if they're like, they just look, and it's weird because a lot of them had 2 weeks off. Today, again, they just look tired. They look out of sorts. Like the guys that played in the Four Nations face-off, it makes sense. And yes, Brock Faber to me looks exhausted. He's making mistakes he doesn't make. He looks like he is just worn out. And you know what? If you check out that guy's time on ice in the Four Nations, if you check it out today, it makes sense why he looks like that. But beyond that, guys that were on the beach in Cabo look tired. And so do I think that this team deserves to be punished like they've done something wrong? No. Do I think throwing more assets for short-term assets at this is going to save them? No. So like that's where, because there have been Wild teams in the past that I thought in no way, shape, or form deserved help. Like they had made their own bed. You could try to get them some help. I said, screw them. Don't. That's not this team. I don't dislike this team. But I also don't want to, as we talked about on the show on Saturday after the Gustav Nyquist trade, I also don't want to take away from the coming seasons with a Hail Mary pass that the last 4 games now, I don't know what's going to help this team. I don't know. To your point, penalty kill, 2 for 2, right? Congratulations. That's awesome. For this club, that's great. Gus did not, it sounds like Nyquist is going to eventually be used on the PK. He was not today. But that's where this gets tricky to me, because it's not a clear cut, this room has done a lot of good things. John Hines has done a lot of good things. But where it gets to be a little bit murky is if this is what we're going to see, which is sort of a team that just looks taxed. And this is the first time I think, and correct me if you think that this assessment's wrong, this recent stretch is the first time where it's like, we can't do this without Kirill. Like the team that we were watching, the team that we've watched the last week or so, to me, just looks like, Boldy had 8 shots and I thought played well. He's not that consistent, but he was very good against his hometown team, the Boston Bruins, today. But I just feel like as a whole, this is like we can't do this without our star, and that toll, his extended absence, is I think really starting to show right now.
I'll agree with like to an extent on that, because I do think it's hard to not be playing with your superstar. A guy when he's in the lineup is a top 5 player in this league. But I will say, and people are chiming in here, and I do agree with GA 007 and William Young, where it's like 3 games in about 3.5 days, and it's games in different cities, so they're traveling. So they did just have 2 weeks off, most of the team. That's still a heavy workload for this league. Now they have a few days off, so I'll be curious to see if this style of play, where the first 2 periods kind of sluggish, they came out, I want to say, in the third today, and I made a comment after like 4 or 5 minutes. I was like, the passing looks zippier. Like, they look a little more alive here for this period. I think they can do it to an extent, because still on paper, this lineup, I think, is able to compete, if not succeed, against a lot of teams in this league. But when you have some teams that are just like fully healthy, they've kind of been on the opposite end of what the Wild have been dealing with, where they're dodging the injury bug. And today, I mean, heck, the Bruins, the second half of a back-to-back, and it was a struggle for the Wild. So you're going to have like a team that's not only been healthy, but probably coming off like 2 days rest. Right. That's a game where, yes, they probably can't do it without Kirill. Today, they showed they can, and I think given a little more rest, and now you're going to be at home. So really, there's no excuses here this month. Like, if you can't do it without Kirill, we're going to see real quick.
Yeah, my problem is the body of work in those three games. The Utah game, you weren't tired. You played like it. The Colorado game, okay, back-to-back, but you took a lot of that game off. So why don't you come back today? Like, they just look to me mentally exhausted, which is what I think the Kirill effect. And look, you know what, Age? They might know he's done. They might know he ain't coming back this season. They might know he ain't coming back potentially until the playoffs. This team looks like, and I can't explain it, it suffered some type of mental blow. But, I mean, if Kirill's out until the playoffs start, the players certainly have a very good idea if they don't just outright know that. So, yes, if this was the third game in 3.5 days and they had gone lights out against Utah and lost, and they had gone lights out and played a complete game against the Avs and lost, but damn it, they were close and they played really, really well. And then today they won, but they're tired. Totally get that. It's the body of work, though. That's the problem. The other thing, too, is, like, let's go back to what you did a little while ago and look at the old line chart. I love a good line chart. Let's look at the line chart, okay? Boldy played well. 8 shots. Really like him. When he's playing like he did today. Marco Rossi, I don't know he had a good game today, but, the dude's got 21 goals. He's had a really nice year. The Nyquist acquisition, he wasn't exactly tearing it up with the Predators. Now, the Predators are really bad, but let's look at the second line as sort of the second and third lines as where this thing is eroding, and I think that it's real cause for concern. Marcus Johansson's playing great. 3 consecutive games. Ironically, in 2 of their worst games, JoJo plays fantastic. What do you know? Welcome to the party. Freddie Gaudreau is playing really well, but he is not a second-line center. That's going to catch up to you. Like, every game that Gaudreau plays, like he has basically the past 2.5 games or so, is a gift from God. That's going to erode. I told you this today, and we talked about it. Matt Zuccarello, who scored a goal, I think, against Utah or Colorado, and is at 13 goals now. But, Matt Zuccarello is a very fine wine when he's playing with Kirill. Otherwise, I think he's a guy. And he's not a young guy. He's a guy. Third line, Foligno, Hinostroza, who was first line, but now he's third line, and Brandon Gaunce. Because you had to send Hustadinov down. And you can complain about Murat all that you want, but the reality is Brandon Gaunce is your third line guy now. So I just think you're asking a lot here, which is why I'm not dismissing a trade if they think that they have a chance. Because at the rate they're going right now, and it's 11 of 15 games in March at home here, but you haven't played well here. I don't know that you can get away with trying to hope that the leaks in the ship don't become bigger and bigger unless you know for a fact that Kirill's back in like 2 weeks, which I'm not willing to play that game given how the Wild is talking about him.
And that's what this comes back to. Like this whole week is going to be a circle of a conversation of like, I acknowledge they probably need another piece, but then do they feel like this team is set to make a run? But then if they are set to make a run, can they do that? And are they going to get their two main guys back with Kirill and Eriksson? And when are they going to come back? And if they do, are they going to have chemistry? And then, well, hey, they're still showing, like, it's going to be the same conversation, just running in a circle. So 2:00 on Friday, frankly, can't come soon enough, because I feel like for anybody listening to JHS, it's going to be a similar record spin here for the coming week. But it frankly comes down to two things in my mind. One, the trajectory that they're having behind the scenes about these two players and their health, like when they actually will return. They're going to tell us whatever they want. We just have to take it at face value, but they probably know a lot more than they're sharing, I would imagine. Two, what do they feel like this team actually realistically can do? I feel like this team is a playoff team. They've played like that. But once again, I feel like just given, frankly, like the luck and the narrative and everything around this team, given a guy blocks a shot and all of a sudden, hey, he's out week to week. I don't know that this is a deep playoff run type of team compared to what we know the Wild to be, which is a first round exit, or maybe you sneak and you get lucky and hey, now you're in the second round and then you're done. So I don't know if they feel like this team can make a deep run or not. That's going to come down to whether, I think, paired with the injury stuff, if they make any significant type of move, or they're going to stand pat. Gus Nyquist is enough, and we're just going to hope that pieces come back and are healthy, and then things just start to click.
Wild fan says, Hartman will be helpful being back. I do expect him to come back and put together 2 really nice games or so, but he's a bottom 6 guy now. He might be a center. I guess he is right now. He might be a wing. I don't know. I'm not banking on. I never talk about Hartman's return in like the same breath as Kaprizov or Ek. Like, he's a bottom 6 guy now. The guy that we saw 3 years back now, that's not him anymore. And I don't think, and that was a one-off. I don't quite frankly think that was ever really Ryan Hartman. So yeah, I think that there's a lot to consider, a lot to sort out. And I think Bill Guerin is trying to do that now. And some of this, as much as he certainly takes some of the brunt of the criticism from the fan base, some of this is completely out of his control or John Hines' control. I mean, guys got hurt. Now, could we look at the medical staff? I guess, but Brodin, he's blocking shots. Like, he's getting hurt blocking shots. It's very clear there. And I think from the time that he blocked the shot against the Blues, I think he broke a bone in his foot, came back. He has not been the same. That's not a doctor's fault. It's a broken bone. So, like, this isn't, just to be abundantly clear here, I'm not pinning this on, like, the team. I'm not saying that they have done something horribly wrong. My feeling is this. The loss of Kaprizov and Ek, and now Brodin, and just an injury, a really, season, again, riddled with injury issues to some key players. I have reassessed my feeling about what this team can do, as opposed to 2 months in when they were playing great. And what was it in December at one point that they were either in or flirting, AJ, with first place in the entire league? Like, that was fun.
Start of December, they were like the number 1 team in the league.
Yeah, that was fun. That was great. But that's not now. And I think you have to acknowledge that and look at this through the lens of, to your point, what can you do now?
And I'll let you maybe take this point here. I've seen a couple suggest.
Hey, look, it's Jesse Pierce. Hi, Jesse. Say hi.
Hi, guys.
There you are.
A few people suggesting a trade for like William here says a center trade at the deadline would be worth it if they were to sign a long-term, like 3+ year deal. I'll let you maybe take that. My thoughts on that, and I think I know yours. But essentially, I'm in the team of, does that move the needle enough to where now you're a Stanley Cup contender, and then you're kind of gambling of, you're just hoping that that person is going to essentially say, you know what, I've fallen in love with St. Paul and the Twin Cities, and I love the organization. Or,
well, and is that the guy that you really want?
And that's the thing too.
I don't know. That's the thing too.
I don't know that's what the team needs, like moving forward here either.
Right. So what one name that I saw brought up in a trade candidate list from the Athletic last week was Dylan Cousins of Buffalo. Now, Buffalo's had I think it was the last game played here, which was the Detroit loss. Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken, had 2 scouts here. Today, there were 8 teams represented by 7 scouts, including 2 from the Panthers. So that was an intriguing one. That might have been for Boston purposes as well. But, does Dylan Cousins look like, because that would be a significant trade, AJ, does Dylan Cousins intrigue you at this point?
I like him as a player. I think he's a young, like kind of spark plug type of guy that maybe just hasn't panned out, frankly, because it's Buffalo, and it seems like they just don't have the kind of luck that their rebuild has just been rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. It's like, well, when are you going to finally get a foundation here? But
right.
I don't know if that's a guy that I think like pushes them into any new stratosphere as a team personally. Like when you have a healthy squad, I really like the 1-2 center punch that you have of Rossi and Eriksson. And I don't think that Dylan Cousins, to me, like now you're either going to force one of those guys to maybe play on the wing or bury them on the third line. And so now you have a 1 with a 2A, 2B style. And maybe that changes exactly what John Hines wants to do. Like you've seen this team at 100% and they are a really good team when they're fully healthy. The problem is now they just can't play the style that they want, and you're trying to make up for it in certain different areas. I don't think acquiring another center for any sort of substantial trade value fixes that in the long run. Immediately, yes, it does help. But down the road, now you're thinking, we've just got too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't know what to do, and you can't play the style of hockey that John Hines probably wants.
Yeah, and I don't want to do – so my whole thing, too, is I don't want to make moves – that are going to impact my roster beyond this year unless I love the guy, and I don't know that I love these guys. So like, look, on July 1st, everything changes. You can make hockey trades. You can explore the market and sign guys, and it comes at a price of a contract, but it comes at no price of trading away assets from your team. So like, that's my thing is if you tell me, hey, you know what? You can make a move by Friday, and you might get past the first round. Probably won't get past the second round, but you might get past the first round. Or you can essentially hit the reset button on July 1st and because you're exactly right, take a good team and improve it more, but do it the way that you want with much more freedom to do so. I'm taking door 2. And absolutely taking door 2.
And that's another reason why I just can't. There's obviously I could probably be persuaded if the trade is really good, but right now making a move for this season when you're still $14 million in dead cap space is against you. When you have 1, the salary cap going up, and 2, when that's coming off the books and you're going to have Bill Guerin and his team. I mean, you've seen what they could do. They're putting together a pretty competitive team here with $14 million tied behind their back.
Judd Brackett's done a hell of a job.
Exactly.
Farm system.
Once again, Athletic recently ranked it number 2 in the NHL. So you have these pieces coming. And Bill Guerin, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but essentially he said at a certain point, we don't need the picks anymore. Like at a certain point, we can use those. So why use those right now rather than a year, 2 years from now,
right,
where it is a week before the deadline and you're realizing, hey, we have a deficiency at the center position, or we need a little more scoring. We got to upgrade on the left wing. We need one more guy. That's where that second or first rounder that you're probably not going to need because your window is currently open. You want that in your back pocket to slide across the table and say, hey, Lou Lamoriello, hey, other GM, Steve Yzerman. I know the Red Wings have kind of faltered here. This is where I just don't think that right now is the time for that big of a move.
Yeah, I know. I think that is fair. I just checked it out on Puckpedia. But by the way, Cousins is in the last year of a contract. His cap hit for this season, which would be way down now because a lot of the contract's been paid out, $7.1 million. But the thing there is he wouldn't come cheap, and he would probably walk, or he'd be expensive to keep. And again, so you're sort of forced there. Let's throw up Danny G's comment before we go here. Brock Faber played a ton today. He was not bad. He looks exhausted. Like there's a difference, and he is making some plays, I think, that he's making mistakes at times that he didn't make before, but I'm not saying he's terrible. He's played a ton. He's a very important part of this team. Do I think that he looks worn out? 100%. So, Age, you tell me if you agree, but I'm not trying to denigrate his play, and the kid is playing a lot still. But I do think it's fair to say, watching him, he does not look like the same player that he did a month back or 2 months back. And I think part of that is just the wear and tear of having played consistently, this and in the tournament as well. Huge ice time.
I think it's similar to the conversation we've had about Boldy a handful of times, which is because we know how good they are, we have a higher standard for them. A bad day for Brock Faber is probably better than 75% of defensemen in the league. Like, was today bad? No, I think he played good in a grand scheme of things. But when you look at Brock Faber as an individual, you've seen what his level of play is before. And yes, I agree with it. He does look a little tired. Some of the turnovers, I'm like, I've never seen him do that multiple times in a game. And now he's doing it multiple nights in a row. So he's still eating 26,
36, 26, 36. It's nuts.
On ice time again. I mean, to do that going from, and I'm calling the Four Nations face-off essentially a playoff series dropped in the middle of the regular season to go to that level of intensity. Now you're back right at it. And we've talked about for him, 3.5 games or 3.5 days with three games in different cities. Like, that's a lot. These coming days, and now they're in action this Friday?
Friday. Seattle Tuesday, Vancouver Friday.
So this should be a week where I think we probably see a normal Brock Faber again. Like, he's probably going to look just as good, if not better, than he did tonight on Tuesday. And then Friday, I don't know, back to normal Brock Faber. But that is when I'm like, okay, you've had time to probably recover a little bit. You've had some days off. You're at home. Like, I guess you're not at home, but you're back with your team going through normal routines and recovery, and you have this other stuff. That's where it might sound like we think he had a terrible game. He didn't. It's just Brock Faber is that good of a player to where when he does have an off game, we probably overplay it a little bit. Well, only because we just have a higher standard for the guy. He is a phenomenal hockey player.
And he, like this entire team, looks tired. So like that's the one thing that is just absolutely, I think, slapping you in the face. It's partially too because outside of Brock, there are a lot of guys trying to play roles that they don't play. And yes, this is true. He made first of all, Pasta, who didn't try hard, but on this play was fantastic. He basically went through 4 guys, and Brock knocked the puck away as Pasta was bearing down on Gustafsson and made a great play. So that was fantastic. But yeah, it looks like a team of a lot of guys trying to do things that they probably don't ordinarily do because, again, Freddie Gaudreau ain't a top 6 guy. And he's being asked to do it, and he's doing a very nice job right now. I just don't think that is a sustainable thing. All right, we are done. Back on Tuesday with Jesse Pierce as well to talk more about the upcoming trade deadline, which will arrive on Friday. He's AJ, I'm Judd. We will see you later. Thanks for tuning in to Judd's Hockey Show.